I've been a journalist since 1966 when I joined the BBC. That is now, I think, 58 years ago. And I've just done the same thing ever since. I've seen some pretty terrible things. You can't cover wars and revolutions and the kind of huge dislocation that they produce without bad things happening. I've covered the massacre in Tiananmen Square, saw every moment of it. I've covered the massacre in the genocide in Rwanda in 1994. And yet, always, I mean, there is a good example, cruelty to one's fellow human beings, and yet there is always somebody, there are always some people who are prepared to do the brave thing and help their neighbors instead of murdering them or just going along with the murder. I don't feel, after my 58 years of doing this kind of job, I don't feel at all pessimistic about human nature, because I've seen too many examples of people behaving well when all their natural kind of instincts might well have caused them to say, I think I'll sit this one out. I'm not going to help anybody here. It's too dangerous for me. And in Rwanda, for instance, I met a woman who had taken in her neighbor, who was a member of the other tribe, the tribe that was being hunted down, and protected her, put her in a little ditch, gave her food, kept coming out every kind of 3 hours to give her something to drink because she knew how hot and dangerous and bad it was. Why should this woman help somebody who was being hunted down by the people of her own tribe? Well, you can't explain it. It just comes from inside. And as I say, there are always, I haven't seen the massacre, for instance, in Sabra and Shatila in 1983, in Lebanon. I haven't seen any of these terrible things happening without some small degree of goodness being shown by people. Okay, it doesn't necessarily match the degree of evil, but it does give you hope. You do realize that not everybody gets carried away with violence and horror and the desire to kill. Journalism isn't a safe profession, and it shouldn't be. Safe journalists aren't good journalists. Safe journalists are the ones that simply go along with what they're told to do and just agree with it and are polite and write what's expected of them. Well, we've got three here today who didn't do that, who didn't play it safe, who didn't just do what they were told to do and just simply took the easy way. They took the difficult way. And of course, the whole of this award is based on somebody who took perhaps the most difficult way imaginable at the time when she was reporting on pure evil and wickedness in Northern Ireland and gave her life for doing it. Lyra McKee was a young journalist from Northern Ireland. She was, in so many ways, a young leader, like you here today. She was an LGBT activist. She was a peace builder. She was a change maker, and she was remarkably brave, going along with reporting what she knew she had to report, even though she knew exactly what the dangers were. And in 2019, she was killed while she was doing her job, reporting on events in her own community. 72 of the 99 journalists killed worldwide in 2023 were Palestinians reporting on Israel's war on Gaza. This year, our judges voted to give the Lyra McKee Award for Bravery to Plestia Alaqad, a Palestinian journalist known for her courageous reporting on Israel's war in Gaza. With more than 4.5 million people watching Gaza through her eyes on Instagram, her work has been shared by international media outlets such as the Al Jazeera, the New York Times, my own BBC, and the Washington Post. She can't be with us today, but she has sent this video.
Even though I'm unable to be here with you today, I want to express how grateful I am for receiving Journalist of the Year Award and Lyra McKee's Award for Bravery. Lyra's legacy reminds us of the courage and bravery it takes to report on stories that often go unheard. With that being said, it breaks my heart that the Israeli genocide on Gaza has been going on for almost a year now. The genocide my people are going through in Gaza right now makes any award feel insignificant. The pain and suffering there overshadow moments like this. What does bring me comfort though is knowing that my work is reaching people around the world. The fact that these stories of Gaza, of loss, of resistance, are being recognized and shared is what keeps me going. I'm grateful for the attention this brings to the struggle of my people and my homeland. Thank you for supporting my work, but most importantly, thank you for listening to the stories that often goes unheard.
Now we have our second winner, who is, I'm glad to say, here. Shaneel Lal is a queer rights activist, a political researcher, and a former columnist at the New Zealand Herald.
The privilege of accepting an award for writing is not lost on me. I'm acutely aware that in many places across the world, those who dare to speak the truth are persecuted. And as we've heard from our Palestinian sister Plestia, Israel has murdered more than 100 journalists who have dared to show the world the suffering of Palestinians. As an indigenous person, but at the core, a human, I find the suffering of indigenous peoples in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Sudan, in Congo, in West Papua, in Kanaki, New Caledonia, painful beyond words can express. But even more agonizing, I have found the lies of Western media that has neatly found home with extremists. In the last few months alone, we have witnessed the moral bankruptcy of Western media as they tell lies to justify heinous sins against humanity. It has been painful to watch a passion that once strived to hold truth to power become the footstool for those who are in power. With the killing of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza, so has been the purpose of Western journalism. But in a world where hatred, bigotry, and oppression thrive on lies and the silence of the masses, we must be brave enough to speak the truth. Writers can never be silent. It is our moral obligation to give voice to those who have been oppressed, silenced, and hidden away by those in power. Those who seek to oppress vulnerable people want nothing more than for us to be quietly obedient to the status quo. But I'm afraid our obedience has not and will not save us. Only our courage to stand in solidarity with each other and resist will. Without brave writers, there is no justice, there is no peace, there is no freedom. I write from my heart for the people it bleeds for. And for months without end in sight, it has bled for people who are still suffering as a result of colonization. I write with one goal in my heart, to find freedom. But I cannot be free until all the people are free. So tonight I leave you with a rather familiar message. Free Sudan, free Congo, free West Papua, free Kanaki, end the genocide, and free Palestine.
Our final winner is César Dezfuli. César Dezfuli is a Spanish-Iranian journalist and documentary photographer whose work has been published in international media outlets such as The Guardian, Time magazine, and Al Jazeera.
Hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here for me today, surrounded by so many inspiring people with so much ambition to improve the world in which we live. I began my journalism studies several years ago, and I never imagined at that time that one day I would be here in Montreal receiving this award alongside two people that I deeply admire, as are Plestia and Shaneel. It's a true honor for me to receive this award, and I assume the responsibility that you are giving me today to continue working with the respect, the empathy, and the social responsibility that being a journalist implies. If there is one thing that I have learned during my years of work, it's the importance of believing in what you do, and that what you are advocating for comes from the most profound honesty. This is the idea that has guided me over the years when choosing the issues I work on and the way I approach them. Migration, and more specifically a search for a better and more empathetic representation of migrants, is the central focus of my work. We live in difficult times for human rights. And migration, the right of people to move, a phenomenon intrinsic in human nature, is taking place today in a context of constant criminalization. I am the son of a migrant, as I am sure it is the case of many of the people today in this room. But if we look back, and I'm not just speaking about the last few decades, if we reflect about the history of humanity, migrations, whether chosen or forced, have shaped the world as we know it today. And therefore, we all have a migrant origin. And so it will continue to be regardless whoever it may concern. I'm 33 years old right now. I have been dedicated to journalism for more than 10 years already. And to this day, the illusion, the hope, and the conviction that quality journalism is useful to change the reality are still intact. But there is one thing that has changed, and that is how ambitious I am about the changes. Sometimes the changes have to be slower and smaller than one would like at the beginning. The world, our societies, the injustices that occur in them hardly change from one day to another, but that doesn't make our work less relevant. Today, I see myself as one more piece of a wheel, someone who picked up the torch from those who made it possible for us to get here today, and who tomorrow will pass the torch to others. My ambition is not personal, but collective. I don't want only to improve the world in which I live, but I also want to contribute to a better world for the generations to come. A world in which, among other things, Palestine can be a free and sovereign country. And I want to take this, and I would like to take this opportunity to condemn the crimes that the State of Israel has been committing for decades, but especially during the last year against civilians in Palestine. But also, free Palestine, but also against dozens of fellow journalists who have been killed and silenced, and Plestia knows very well what that means. This genocide must stop. Thank you again for this recognition and for giving me the opportunity to be here today, and I wish you all a great summit.